Win up to £25,000. The Community Lottery, a subscription-based lottery that allows you to continue to support good causes that matter. When you win, good causes win. Every month, eligible good causes have the opportunity to win a share of funds that could help them continue the good work that they do in our communities. To apply, there's no complicated forms, nor do you have to be a registered charity. Just grab your phone, send us a 60-second video explaining your good cause and the difference having extra funding would make to your project. Visit thecommunitylottery.com. Hit the play button and sign up for either 13 weekly draws or by direct debit for just £4.35 that gives you 4 weekly draws. You could have the chance of winning £25,000. The aim of the Community Lottery is to create an additional source of funding that will enable good causes to undertake innovative projects that matter. If you're in, the communities win.
One Love Lottery is a new exciting weekly lottery established to help raise funds for our young people aged 17 to 25 and to generate community wealth in the UK. By playing One Love Lottery for just £1 per ticket, you also stand a chance of winning some amazing prizes, including our jackpot of £25,000 each week. Tickets are available from onelovelottery.co.uk or call 0208 183 1832 for more information. Draws are made every Saturday and you can play as many times as you like. Players must be 16 or over and reside in the UK. Please support One Love Lottery today. United we stand, divided we fall. One love.
You ready? You got me running, you got me running, got me running. Shake it, shake it, shake it, baby. Raise your hands up. Raise them up.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to the After Dark show. This is your girl, Yvonne Michelle. I'm here another week to talk about relationships. Yes, yes, yes. It's all about relationships, as you know. And this week is no different. First of all, let me just say happy International Women's Day to all the women out there. Happy International Day, month and year. Listen, every day we celebrate ourselves, and that's just how it is. But we use this month, the month of March, to be the month of the woman. Yes, it is. And so today we have a special show. Yes, we do. It's not the normal show, and it's not a group of women talking about how great they are. No, it is not. We know how great we are. But one of the questions I'm often asked, people write in, they often ask me, they Facebook message me, loads of different ways of contacting me, is How do we find a good man? Where are all the good men gone? Why are men so weak? Yes, I said it, because I'm just telling you what women ask me. So I decided to do things a little bit different for this International Women's Day special. It's not about the women. Well, it is, indirectly. You want to have some answers. So what we're doing today is we are talking about the hidden issues behind relationships. The hidden issues behind relationships. And because we know that most of our viewers are from the African Caribbean diaspora, we are specifically talking about the effects, the hidden issues behind Black melanin relationships. And we are getting this from one man. Well, there's two actually. We have two men here today. It's A Man Speaks. We're going to hear some truths. We're going to hear some facts today. So, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? That's the question I have to ask you. Keyboard warriors, are you ready? I'm saying get on your mark, get set, get ready to go, because your questions, as much as we have time for, will be answered today. You're going to hear some facts. We're going to have a presentation, and you're going to be able to hear truths which might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. But hey ho, it's the After Dark show. That's what we do. We go behind the black curtain and we start to unpick and unravel topics that some people find really difficult to answer, to even talk about. We're going behind the black curtain today. Yes, we are. So I want to welcome all of our viewers on Facebook. I also want to welcome all of our viewers on YouTube, and that may be via MediaNet Live TV or Yvonne Michelle TV. You are welcome. And let me not forget our Facebook membership group, the After Dark Membership Club members. I welcome you this evening, and all those who are coming from different streams, from different places, you are welcome. Make yourself comfortable. Get yourself a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you feel uncomfortable, just fix up yourself a little piece and keep it moving. Get your pens, get your papers, get ready to understand, to learn, to do all the things that are going to take you from where you are now to where you want to go in your relationships. Okay, so before I introduce our guest, I do have to say this. It's all been about relationships. As a matter of fact, International Women's Day has been kind of like side hustled, should I say, or pushed aside by the recent interview with Meghan and Harry and Oprah Winfrey. But again, it's all about relationship. It's all about relationships of the grandmother and the grandfather, the father and the, dare I say, stepmother, the children and their children. It's about the whole picture. And today we are looking at the whole picture of this situation, not Meghan and Harry. We did that last night. That's old news. Yeah. But the news is today is how are we going to advance in our relationships with females? How are you going to advance in your relationships with that male person that you are even looking at or you're in a relationship with? How are you going to make that relationship better? Males, the men, I'm addressing you. Everybody going to be addressed tonight. Yes, you are. What are you prepared to do to make your relationship thrive? Well, we have a young man. I call everybody young, everybody. We have a young man here. I'm going to introduce him as he comes, as the men come in. I want you to welcome our men. There's no panel tonight. Guys, you are the panel. Know that. Those on Facebook, those on YouTube, you are the full panel tonight. So we want to hear your thoughts about what has been said today. And we're going to try our hardest to read your comments and your questions. If you have questions, please put a question mark with it. Use the grammar that was given to you when you went to school. Yes. So I can see. Why. Anyway, without further ado, I'm so excited. I am so excited. I've been excited all day. to introduce this young man to you because I hear so much about him. You know what? The ladies love you. I told him that today. The ladies love him because he has a wealth of information. So men who are single, learn from this. Oh, let me just say that. Oh, learn. Let me just introduce this lovely young man. He goes by the name of Tony Crossbody. Do come in to the room with me, Tony. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Yvonne. You flatter me by calling me young.
Yes, we're all young. We're as young as we feel or the person we're feeling.
All right.
Okay. And we also have another young man, another gentleman coming on to help us in the show. We have the gorgeous Mr. C. Where is Mr. C?
Well. What a welcome indeed, Yvonne. Thank you so much. It's a long time since me and Tony have been called anything like gentlemen and young men. It's a pleasure. We must come here more often, Tony.
Listen, it's all love here. It's all love here. This is how we do it here. So tonight, guys, as I was saying, I'm really excited about having you guys here. You run your own show, What a Week. Comes on an hour before this show. So those of you who do not watch What a Week, if you tune in an hour before, so you start 8 till 9?
7 till 9.
7 till 9 on MediaNet Live TV, you will find What a Week, and you will find a lot of information, a lot of things about Black history. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll be educated all at the same time. So these two guys are running their own show. So please do follow them, log into their show, support them because they are doing great work. And let me just say this, the women, it's International Women's Day or week or month, however you want to put it, and women seem to be firing on all cylinders. We seem to not have as many men doing stuff. So when you see our men doing good work, let's support them, get behind them and push them forward, because that is our role as well. We're supposed to be there to push them forward. So this is, without further ado, we're going to start tonight. I can see some Sharon Spice Gibson here. Yeah, and Lolly, Lorraine Rollins all here saying What a Week is an awesome show. So I've just plugged your show. Right, so we can get down to business now. Okay, so today, Tony, we're going to speak from your point of view. You've heard me say, I have many women contacting me, asking me lots and lots of different questions. Why can't they find good men? Why are men coming up short? Why are men effeminate? Why are men they just can't get it together? So for this International Women's Day, I thought, I'm going to gift the women something. We don't need to hear from the women today. We need to hear from the men. We need to hear from the men who are actually doing things, who are firing on all cylinders and are educating us. So Tony, you are here with Mr. C, and we are going to be talking about the current state of relationships in the Black community. For those of you who are not Black or brown, it's all right. You're here for a reason. That means that you must be in the Black and brown. So then that's for you to learn too. It's not exclusive to anybody. Everybody is inclusive in this conversation. But we are talking specifically to the Black community tonight because we want to build and grow our relationships. So without further ado, Tony, come in, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and Mr. C, after him, you'll do the same, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Okay, so my name is Tony Crossbody. I'm a mentor to young Black boys and girls, and I also Black history. As you mentioned, we have a show on before yours called What a Week, and part of that show is Black history, where I trace the origins, the true origins of the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, and basically show how what's happening to us today has really come from a long forgotten past. So that's sort of the aims of the show. As I said, I mentor young people, and many years ago I used to do counseling, relationship counseling. I had a website, and was doing a bit of coaching specifically for women. And so I've just taken that experience now to sort of crystallize a lot of my thoughts, because we're seeing a lot of, the Black community it's in a pitiful state when relationships are concerned. We talk about unity and the desire for unity, but I don't think we understand the basic blocks of unity, which is the family. I don't think we even understand the basic building blocks of a family, because now, we assume that it's just mother and children in the house. And, the idea that there's a father, mother, and children is becoming more and more obsolete. So when you invited me to come on the show, I must admit I was initially reluctant, because I thought, well, you know what, this is just going to be a talking shop and we're just going to, go backwards and forwards and nothing's ever going to happen. And after speaking to a couple of friends, they said, no, go and speak, and at least let people know what men's feelings are and what they have been feeling. Because let's be honest, men have not had a platform on which to express themselves as to how they see relationships. You see, for the last 40, 50 years, we've basically had to sit there and be berated by women who basically have been calling us out on our nonsense. And nobody's denying that. Nobody in their right mind will deny that men have been, doing some crazy stuff. So that's true. But equally too, women have controlled that narrative. Women have controlled the platforms on which those narratives were discussed. Therefore, men never had a say. And so how we have felt is, it's a bit like you're focusing so much on Donald Trump, you don't really realize how bad Joe Biden is. See, because it doesn't really matter. Because as long as you focus on Donald Trump, that's all you need to do. And so as long as the focus and the spotlight is on men alone, women never have to look at themselves. And that's a problem, because if one side has to take the blame for all the ills of black society, then actually you can never move forward, because both sides have to see their wrongs before we can actually talk about a solution. And for 40 years, black men have had to hear their wrongs over and over and over again. So the mere fact that you've invited me to the show and I'm here is that I would like to address the ladies, but equally I want to address the men too. So I'm known to be quite frank. My language is clean, but my expressions are brutal. And it has to be that way in order for people to understand where we really are in this whole mess. So again, I thank you for inviting me to the show. And I want to firstly say my utmost respects to all those black men who have been holding it down for 20, 30 years with their woman, looking after their families, doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing, right? Because unless you're a man, you never really understand how difficult that is in the sort of society that we live in today. So there have been numerous black men who've been looking after their families, doing right by their wives, by their children. I salute you. I also salute the black women who've been holding it down and looking after their families for decades. So you just have my utmost respect. Whenever I see these people and they're talking about relationships, I sit down and keep my mouth shut, because they know what they're talking about. However, you have a renegade group, black men and black women, who have just fallen off the path so badly, right? That it seems like it's all men and it's all women that's doing this. So I'm going to give you the reasons tonight why I think women need to stop finger pointing and start looking at coming to the table where we can all get together and talk about progressing the nation forward. Okay? So we've, a lot of people have never had a chance to listen to a man speak, right? Not been allowed to speak. So tonight I'm going to speak. I'm going to use my opportunity and use my platform wisely. Okay?
That's right. Yes, absolutely. That is why you are here. This is a platform for you to use. Mr. C, before you get into it, let's just introduce Mr. C. Mr. C, just tell us who you are, what you do, and well, go on.
Well, basically, I'm here because I'm Tony's Uber and security. I'm here to make sure that he get home safely, because the ladies, they're not ready for this conversation yet. No, I'm playing. I'm Tony's co-host on What a Week. I'm also a stand-up comedian, stand-up comedy tutor, youth worker, and I've been in a few relationships, and I've got a few things of experience to share with people as regards to what I think a man and a woman should be doing, whether it's after dark or in the early hours of the morning.
I like how you put that. Okay, thank you both of you for being here. And as I said, this is a platform, and we are going to this is a free forum. You get to speak. We normally have a panel of men and women, single and married, or in relationships, whatever they want to, how they ever want to put their relationships out there. And we all have the ability to speak. We don't always agree, but we do agree to disagree with respect. Respect is the minimum. And the one thing that, and I know from you guys, I know that we will all respect each other as male and females on here. And we will talk openly, candidly, and we're going to talk the truth. There may be some things that make either or feel uncomfortable, but that's good, because that's what we're here to do. Because when everything is too comfortable, nothing changes. And we want change. And I think both sides want change. So let's dig into, let's dig into the conversation. So I'm going to throw this back right over to you. Tony, I do believe you've got a presentation. Are you going to start with that?
Yeah, I'd like to, as we discussed, I'd like to, you did mention that I'd do sort of like, I've got a presentation. You said 15 minutes, and then we can take questions and deal with that, and then we can move on.
Yeah,
but I've got a little bit to say, because as you can imagine, we've been waiting 40 years for this opportunity. So there's a little bit that we need to talk about. And like I said, I want to talk specifically to the women first, and then I want to talk to the men.
Okay.
So yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's go for it.
So what we're going to do, we're going to show some slides, which Mr. C will kindly read for me, and then I'm going to translate, because although they're written in English, I'm going to translate and explain what they really mean. Okay.
Yeah.
So to begin with, no slides yet. Let me just give you an intro and say, look, no right-thinking black man is ever going to deny the crimes that a lot of us have committed, and I include myself. Right, I'm not innocent at all, and we have often been accused of cheating, lying, being unfaithful to our spouse, and doing all sorts of heinous activity which has affected and broken many families. But the question that nobody really asks is, when we're doing this cheating and infidelity, who are we doing it with? That's never discussed, you see. It's never discussed that we're actually cheating with another woman, right? Mm-hmm. A woman who's often aware at some point within that relationship that I'm a married man, and she's trying to convince me that I should leave my wife, right? So what's that about? So we have me, Mr. Unfaithful, but I'm with a woman who's trying to get me to leave my family. I think they call it home wrecking.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there are many things that we're not allowed to say as men, right? Because we have to be sensitive to the feelings of women. But let's talk it as we see it. Ladies, we know that many years ago you had that child for us, not because you're a doting mother and you wanted to bring a productive citizen into the world, but you wanted to keep us in the relationship. We know this. We know that you wanted to have a child with us, not because you wanted to be a doting mother and bring a productive child into the world, but you wanted to jump the housing queue to get a flat because you didn't like life at home with your mum. We know, ladies, that some of you had a child for us not because you loved us or you wanted to be a doting mother, bringing a productive member of society into the world, but you wanted to extract our DNA because you thought we were good looking or we had nice hair. When we didn't fall for your guilt trip of wanting to keep us in a relationship, you then went rogue on us and then began your vindictive love that you claimed that you had. When the government introduced policies that said that men had to leave the house or you will lose your welfare, you were quick to take your 30 pieces of silver from the government and have us put out of the house. No thought about the child's welfare and about how he would need a father in his life. No, you took the money. And then when the man left and was prone to temptation outside and left and decided not to get involved in the relationship, you were hurt. You were in pain. So government policy and your desire for money and a come up is why a lot of you had children. Not for love. I'm just getting started. So if we start from that basis now, we understand that you are not Mother Teresa. A lot of you aren't. You pretend you are because you whitewash history 30 years after the event. Oh, I was a doting mother and I looked after and that man wasn't around, that horrible man. But in some of your cases, the real story is that you were a mercenary mother. And we know this. And so we can't pretend that women are saints and nuns and, you know, we should be deifying them, calling them goddess and all this. No, not at all. You are just as down and dirty and manipulative as we are. The reason why a lot of you are in the position you are today is because of government policy. I'm going to prove it and show it to you. Government policy has helped to prop you up against your man, because a lot of you nowadays don't want to hear nothing from men. You don't want no male leadership in your life. You don't want no headship in your life. You're bungling from bad decision to bad decision. But all of that is the man's fault, right? Okay. So let's look at a slide. I'm going to talk about a doctrine that is infecting the Western world, but is particularly virulent in the Caribbean community. Okay? So as we read this together, I'm going to show you how this has been experienced in the community by men, and I'm going to show you the damage it does to children. So let's have the first slide, please. Right. So look, I want to define for you a doctrine called radical feminism. Some of you would have heard of this. Okay? Let's actually see what radical feminism is, and let's see if we've ever experienced it. Mr. C, would you read that for us, please?
It reads, radical feminism is a perspective within feminism that calls for a radical reordering of society in which
Stop there, thank you. Notice, radical feminism calls for a radical reordering of society. What sort of reordering is it asking for? Mr. C, continue, please.
Okay, reordering of society in which male supremacy is eliminated in all social...
Stop. Notice, the agenda is for male supremacy to be eliminated. In other words, man being the head of the family, man being in the house with the woman and children. They want to eliminate this. Continue.
Is eliminated in all social and economical contexts, while reorganizing that woman's experiences are also affected by the social divisions, such as in race, class, and sexual orientation.
Stop. So notice, radical feminism has a link with sexual orientation. We know where this is going. Continue, Mr. C.
Radical feminists view society as fundamentally a patriarchy in which men dominate and oppress women.
Stop. So in the radical feminist mindset, men are oppressors. Oppressors are the enemy. we understand this phrase of oppression in the black community and what it means. So the oppressors are the community. The oppressors in the community are the men. This is the point they're making. Carry on, Mr. C.
So radical feminists seek to abolish the patriarchy as one.
So notice, radical feminism wants to abolish the patriarchy. In other words, get rid of men, get rid of men's opinions, get rid of men's leadership, get rid of men's headship. We don't want to hear nothing from them. We're not taking no talk from no man. Carry on.
As one front in a struggle to liberate everyone from an unjust society by challenging existing social norms and institutions.
So here we are now. People have to be liberated. Liberated from what? Of course, it's women's liberation, right? Women have to be liberated from men, men's opinions, what men say, what men approve of. Carry on.
This struggle includes.
So next slide. Next slide, please. If we can explode that.
Society is that of gender inequality. Radical feminists firmly believe that we must transform the entire basis of society towards the celebration of feminine values and virtues. Only by opposing centuries of patriarchal oppression can society be reordered along a matriarchal basis.
Now, understand this. This is a belief system. This is a belief system, an agenda for the Western world, effectively, right? So what this is about reordering society. What's the order? Take men out of the loop, take men out of the lead, take men out of the headship, and in his place, put a woman there, because men are the oppressors. Continue.
Under a more gynocentric approach, women could enjoy fulfilling and meaningful relationships without the need for men. Unlike other strands of feminist thought.
Stop there, Mr. C. Notice, without the need for men. So what are you going to do? What are feminists going to do? Where are they going to find love if it's not within the arms of men? Is it going to be the arms of women? Continue.
Unlike the other strands of feminist thought, the role of males is entirely marginal with radical feminism. Whereas liberal feminists believe that men can assist progress towards feminist goals, and socialist feminists have faith in the predestined role for the male proletariat. Radical feminists have no specific role for men whatsoever. This is sometimes referred to as the redundant male theory.
Right. So, feminists believe in a redundant male theory, which means males are surplus to requirements. They're redundant. In other words, they're unemployed. They've got no work. We don't need no man. Where have we heard that before? Next slide.
Whereas the first wave of feminism was generally propelled by middle-class, Western, cisgender white women, the second phase...
Stop there. Where did this teaching of feminism come from? White women brought this in. It was white people that brought this teaching of feminism. Carry on, Mr. C.
The second phase drew women of color and developing nations seeking sisterhood and solidarity, claiming...
probably gender struggle, I believe.
Yeah, gender struggle is class struggle.
Right. So stop
women's
there for a
struggle is class struggle.
Yeah, women's struggle is class. So here we have, it was white women that roped black women into this idea of feminism. Now this really kicked off in the 60s. And let me give you a historical context here. Black people have been enslaved for 400 or 500 years. Slavery had ended around 1865. For 100 years, both black men and black women were oppressed. Sharecropping, and then finally, when in America in the 20s and 30s, built their own towns, right, called Black Wall Street, Rosewood, and all these other places. Mm-hmm. They were working together in a unified cause. The 60s came, and the civil rights movement was in full swing. The feminists came out and told black women, you know what? Listen, you're men. They're oppressing you. And no doubt there were some bad men within the black community at that time. But black women, they rolled with that. And eventually feminism and the whole teaching of feminism, and radical feminism specifically, has come into the Western world. Now let me stop here, Yvonne.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take some questions.
I think this is a good place to stop, because you was in flow. So I thought I would leave it. One of the questions that I see coming up is, this information seems to be from Wikipedia. Is this right? So how factual is this information?
It is because the feminist references are there at the bottom of Wikipedia, which I do check. It's just that Wikipedia is easier to access, but you can check. If you look at the bottom, it has sources in Wikipedia where you can actually go and check the information yourself.
Yeah, I think for me, at talking about feminism, feminism is a belief. It's about your social, economic, and political equality for women. So, you know, I feel like it's been taken out of context here. I feel like, you know, and I think there's a lot of generalization. So before we go any further, I think it's fair to say that some women, because this does not cover all women. It does not.
I think,
and
again,
as a woman, let me just finish here. Yeah. As a woman, I talk for myself. That what you said does not reflect me at all.
Okay.
There are little things, and some of the things I'd have to say, because I did see some women say about having children to get up in the housing and all of that. That's not my story. So that's why I say some women. Let's not.
Of course, obvious. I mean, it's like not every man cheats on women. Not every man oppresses women. Not every man beats women.
Absolutely.
So it's not every, right? But the people who are listening, who may, and I'm assuming that none of your listeners have done any of the things that I've mentioned, but they will know of people. Right? Relatives, friends, colleagues at work. Just like I know men who've done some dastardly things to women, but I haven't done them. But the fact that I haven't done them, or a few of my friends haven't done them, doesn't mean it hasn't taken place. So we have to a certain extent generalize, but say not all.
And also as well, I think what's really important to understand is that, you know, when we're talking stuff, especially what Tony's picked out from Wikipedia, is this is what needs to happen for this evening. That a lot of people like to bring their personal opinions and their personal feelings into discussions. You can't learn that way. First of all, you have to absorb the information. So in that whole stuff about feminism, we saw that there's 3 different categories of feminism, and this is what it's showing you is the foundation of those 3 categories. And in order for us to move the conversation forward, number one, you have to be aware of those 3 different stems of feminism, and you have to understand what each of them stands for, in order so that we can now later on in the discussion see how those various different factions have had an impact on what's happened with the relationships between men and women. So first of all, it's about grounding information, factual information, as regards to the different strands of a conversation what we're going to need to have later on. And those are factual things, as Tony says. You have to look for it and understand it yourself, instead of just trying to relate it to yourself personally. It's not about you.
It's not about you.
No, it's not about me, but it's also not about the people that I know. So and I have to defend it that way. There are people out there. I'm not going to say that there aren't, because we know that there are.
Sorry, I'm talking about feminism here. I'm not talking about the stuff what Tony said about baby mother and council flat and all that. I'm talking about the stuff in Wikipedia and the feminism. So we have to have because what we think feminism is not necessarily what it actually is in these different 3 areas. So again, we have to be clear what those 3 areas are and what each of them stands for. A bit like Black Lives Matter. We've got Black Lives Matter, the political party or the strain in America, the organization, and we've got Black Lives Matter, the movement, as regards to black people collectively together protesting as regards to the things what have happened. They're two separate entities, but both have got the same names. And people get mixed up between the two. So when people say that Black Lives Matter is an is a different kind of thing, it's organized by this, it's about, people get confused as regards to what the two mean, because it's got the same label. So when we talk about feminism, it's important that we understand the different strains of feminism.
Okay.
And Yvonne, when you introduced the show, when we spoke earlier, you said you had a lot of inquiries from your ladies as to why are men weak, why are men this. Now you notice I wasn't triggered by that to say, well, it's not me, it's not my friends. I understand that there is a general view out there that some men are weak.
Yeah.
So I don't need to tell you that's not my story. Right? If the cap fits me, I wear it. So for women to say, well, oh, you're being unfair, oh, you're being very general. Well, a lot of what I say may not apply to you, so that's fine. What I'm saying is, this is as men how we view things. Now, it's not going to be all women, but it's going to be far too many women that are like this. So, you know, we do know stories of women who have been mercenary in the way I've described. Now, not you, not your friends, not your family, not all the good people that you know, but there are women out there who have done this. And so if we're going to be honest and we want to hear what we think, then this is what we're thinking, and it's not going to be easy to swallow.
Okay, it's not about the easy to swallow. I just want to make it so that everybody's aware that it's not as all women, because I'm looking at the comments as well. Right. And so just to make that clear, it's not we're not generalizing to say, oh, because there's somebody put in, this seems like it's a woman bashing thing, and I want to be clear that I will not sit here and have women bashed. That's not what this is about. Right. This is about education. So you know, yeah. So I am the host, so I will throw things. It doesn't necessarily mean it's what I agree with, but I will throw things out there that I see that need to steer and do things. Yeah, so
but Yvonne, do make sure that you and all your female colleagues and listeners also apply the same to us. When you're talking about us, don't say men. Say some men. You don't. A lot of you guys, when you do it, it's men. It's like men in general in total, right? You do the same thing. So apply the same standards that you want me to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then we're fine. So when I'm speaking tonight, my observations are on some women, not all. You heard me say in the beginning that I salute the women who basically stood by their man and done what they did. They get my respect. But there's some of us, men and women, who are not doing the right thing. And if we're going to call the men out, let's call the women out.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, I just want to say as well, that this is one of the things that we've got to move away from as well, is this attachment to the label man and woman. And straight away, what happens is, like, you know, Tony said all of that at the beginning, but yet when he was talking about you and giving you all of that praise, it seems like because now he's talking about a small part of women who have bad behavior, you now want to take up the fight for them, and it's not your fight. He's not talking about you, but because you heard the word woman, you hang on to that label so much that now you want to attach yourself to all the bad bits which we're addressing today. So you've got to understand the difference when sometimes you've got to take off the label as a woman or as a man and just put it down and just listen as regards to what's actually being spoken about here and how we're going to move the conversation forward. And then when it's right time, you can pick up that label and address certain things. But for now, I'm going to ask all the women to pick up that label as a woman and just put it on the side so that we can have the discussion without it affecting your feelings or your pride or anything like that at all. So let's just have this conversation as regards to what we think, and then we can move it forward as regards to what needs to be done and how we can address certain things. And same with the men, because some of the men in here as well, you need to put down your little label as a man. Say, boy, man don't do this, a man don't know. Let's talk about things from a different perspective. Put down the labels and let's just have a discussion.
And don't worry, ladies, I'm going to talk to the men too. We're not free from accusation, right? So, but you do have to hear how we feel about this, and we can't just take a one-trick pony narrative that you've been spouting for 40 years as the whole truth. It's not. It's not.
Okay. All right. So, Lord have mercy. Time is moving. I'm just going to say this. There's going to be a part 2 to this show. I'm just saying, because I'm looking at the time and time is moving. And I know we've got a lot to get through. So there's going to be a part 2 and possibly a part 3 to this show. So let's I wanted to bring in some of the questions.
Yeah.
Lolly Lorraine says, but why get into that relationship knowing that it's what happens? Why then do you stay in a relationship? I don't. Right, guys, before we go into the questions, when you are writing your questions, please be clear, because we are moving. So tell us what you're referring to. It means you have to type a bit more, but we need to know what was said as to that comment, because this is moving forward, right? So just to let you know that. So, because that question could mean anything. I don't know if you can pick up from anything on there. Can we put some questions up on the screen? Not comments per se, but questions, if we have any. Okay, so Kelly and Ross is saying, well, this is a comment. Kelly and Ross is saying, men have been conditioned to hear men, this, men, that. What? This does not make sense to me. Can you make sense?
Yeah. It says men have been conditioned to hear, as in to listen. Men this, men that. But it's that. But is that all men? He says it's conditioning. He says we need to break out of that.
Yeah, it's how we talk. It's how we use the language, and we need to learn to use the language in a more effective way. Is there any questions up there for anything with a question mark on it? And if you do have a question, use a question mark, please. It will help us, no doubt.
I think the point is that, Yvonne, is that both men and women need to have a sense of maturity when you're listening to something. I always say, chew on the meat and spit out the bone. So what's for you is for you, what's not for you, not for you. Most of what I'm saying to some of you women is meaningless because you've never lived the sort of life I'm describing. Some of you have lived parts of it. Own it. I'm not here to condemn you. I'm not your judge. I'm not your God. Own it. I've done dirt too. So it is what it is.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. We're going to move on. But what I'm going to say is that, here's a question from CT. I don't recognize the feminine you describe, but did women become independent because they were on a feminist journey, or because men were no longer providing for them and women became the providers?
Good question.
Very good question.
Both. I'm going to go into that when I talk to the men a little bit. I'm going to go into that, the reasons why, because it's not, again, the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying right now is to let women know that butter does melt in your mouth. Don't act like it doesn't. You need to come to the table and talk to us because your past is as murky as ours. But I am going to talk to the men because I know as a man what we've been doing. So at the end of this, hopefully, everybody can put their hand up and say, you know what? We all done dirt. Let's forget about finger pointing now and come together and look at how we're going to help the next generation and our grandchildren that are coming up. Okay. Let's stop the denial that men are evil and women are good and it's all men's fault. No, let's stop that.
It's about taking responsibility at the end of the day.
Right.
Can we just go back to Cole Perkins' question? He asks if we'd heard of somebody.
Ezrin Perkins, I think it was.
Yeah.
Ezrin Pizzi. Pizzi.
If so, can you explain to the group who she is and her relevance to this discussion? I know that might not be a part of your presentation. You can answer that or not. It's entirely up to you.
I have no idea who that is.
Right. Okay. So, maybe next time. Right. One last question. Zora Johnson is saying, Tony, How have you set about gathering your information for today's presentation? Have you taken it from your minimal experience?
Ouch, sorry, that hurts. Oh, oh, my feelings. Oh, painful. Yes, the answer is yes, from my minimal experience.
Okay. Last question. Tell us how you would have suggested women to manage the struggles they've endured when pregnant with other children and financially strangled, becoming independent and somewhat hardened to probable no.
So, Carolyn, I'm not talking about women in those experiences. I never mentioned about women who were left to care for a child by themselves. You know, if and when you both agree to have a child or have the child, and then the man. I'm not talking about that. I will be talking to those men about that, but those examples I've used that have nothing. I'm talking about women who had children as leverage tools. That's not the example that you're talking about.
Okay, so we're going to move on because time is of the essence. I know that we had one question from Don and Ben, but we're going to move on and we might be able to come back to that question after. But do keep your questions coming and make sure that they are questions. Think about what you want to know and ask the question. Don't waste your time typing out, and there's nothing good to come from what you're typing unless the comment is really valid. But let's ask some good questions. Back over to you, Tony.
No, and I appreciate the women's comments, and I understand why some of them would feel triggered. Mm-hmm. Because after so long of sort of listening to yourselves and taking advice from each other about men and what men are, it's kind of difficult to hear a man say and be so brutal about it as well. But we do have a viewpoint, and whether you agree with it or not, you know, that is what it is. So when we talk about the evils of men, and we've been hearing that for 40 years. Well, let's not forget, it makes two to tango, right? So the black man's been tangoed, and now we're coming to talk to you, Mrs. Tango, because we need to own what we've been doing. My feeling is that women have done a very good job, a very good PR service, and it happened very young from our mothers, where we were told women are all things nice and sugar and spice, right? And we've been told that we need to buy into this Disney World concept of what a woman should be. Most of us have sat in front of a TV since we were 5 years old, being programmed with Cinderella and Prince Charming, and all these wonderful fantasies that we thought we were going to have when we grew up. And these things have stayed in our minds. And you know this because a lot of women still use the language of Walt Disney World. They say things like, "Oh, you got to kiss a lot of frogs before you meet your prince," right? So this is a repetition of that subconscious propaganda that they've had ever since they were young, when they were dreamt about romance, that this prince will come his way, and they had this expectation set up in their mind. They weren't even conscious of it. Mm. And then what they got in reality is an oppressed black man. Not a white prince who comes from a royal family with lots of money and a nice ride. A black man who's struggling. And he did not meet the expectations of this Prince Charming. And that's where the disappointment starts to set in.
And also with that princess mentality as well, what you'll find is that a lot of a large minority of women. How's that then? Yeah, 49% of it still have this princess mentality, and it's funny because I always say to myself, once you reach a certain age, when do you stop becoming a princess and start being a queen? Because we've got to be so careful about the language what we say and the language what we utter, because again, it really does confine our behavior, and it allows other people to take advantage of us in the conditions which we impose on ourselves.
Yeah, Yeah. So let me just take a question. It's a good question. As CT asks, most people here are 40 plus, grew up in a matriarchal environment in the Caribbean and here. So when did it become patriarchal? No, well, actually, it was patriarchal. The shift started in the 60s. So many of us knew patriarchal household. Even the Caribbean, before we came here, a lot of us knew it. A lot of women grew up in very good households with very good black men in oversight. So the question is, what went wrong? And I'm trying to show you that we have been socially engineered in this direction that we're in. This is not an organic movement. It's not organic, right? If you look at the history of feminism, feminism was bolstered by the CIA, who put tons of money into it. Google Gloria Steinem and the CIA and feminism, and how she was used as a poster girl for feminism to say that being a housewife was like being a slave in Nazi Germany and all this sort of stuff. And how women were pushed. Now, I'm going to say men are responsible too, because men dropped their responsibilities, but women were pushed to take over the household. Because ultimately, governments know that when you put women at the front of the household, they are easier to control and they are malleable. Men represent a bulwark against government and oppression. Again, you have to go into the history to understand this. But many women, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
Well, you're going to disagree with me. You're going to say, well, no, women can do it.
I wasn't going to say that.
Okay.
No, I wasn't going to say that at all. No.
What were you going to say?
It's just some of the words that you were using in terms of, I feel like, and I understand that how men were back in the day and how they wanted women to stay at home, and women fought against that because they felt that they could do more. And we see that women can do more. So I'm just, I think in that matriarchal world of how men are, it's almost women be submissive, women shut up, don't do nothing. It's almost like the children, they're seen and not heard. And that's how women were. For me, looking at the whole picture, men dropped the baton and the women picked the baton up and ran as fast as they could and started to build. And as a consequence of that, I feel like some men now use that against women because women picked up the bat out of necessity, not because they wanted to in some cases, but I feel like, if we all, putting out all of these things, if we all just take responsibility for where we are, if we all take responsibility, stop pointing the finger, because we know when you point a finger, there are several fingers pointing back at you, right? So if we were to all stop and just wipe the slate clean and start again, not your fault, not my fault, but where are we now? Where can we go from here? And one of the things that I say, yes, I hear women talk about men, this and men that, but actually, and I will be honest with you, before my children, I have 2 grown-up sons who are 35 years old. Yes, I know I look very young. I know that already, but they are 35 years old, right? And I had to look at my son from my language. All men are this, all men are that. Men can't do this, men can't do that. But actually, when I look at my sons, I'm looking and I'm saying, this is what I'm saying. This is the legacy that I'm giving to them. This is the filth that I am talking and projecting over my own children. That can't work. That can't work at all, because my sons are great men. One of them is a father. He's a great father. And he's learning as he goes along, as we all do as parents, because you're not taught how to parent. So for me, once you get to know who you are as a person, and I know who I am as a woman, I know what I can do, I know my strengths, and I know my weaknesses. And once I know that, then I can meet a man and say, that one is not for me. I can identify that very quickly. He's not for me. He's not for, but that one could be for me because I know who I am. And I think that, you know, we need to eradicate the blame game. And it feels kind of
right. So I love everything you said, right?
Mhm.
I love the conciliatory tone, right? It's interesting because what tends to happen in many cases is that women have a lot to say about anything, whatever it is.
More to say than men.
But as soon as a man claps back and comes with things that perhaps trigger women's feelings, women then start talking about we need to stop finger pointing. They forget what they've been doing for 40 years past, because now they're sitting down there having to face some of men's feelings, which is not too nice. I'm not talking about you necessarily, but women in general.
Yeah, I'm not taking this person at all.
Not to you, but women in general do this. They like they like free reign to express themselves, right? And they want their story heard. But as soon as there's a counter, and if it's a strong counter, and it triggers them, oh, why are we doing all this finger pointing? What we need to do is come together. And you forget if this sounds like women bashing to anyone, what have we been getting for 40 years? What? We've been getting murdered in conversation. We've been getting denigrated, put our feet put to hot coals, publicly, privately, or wherever a woman felt she wanted to express herself. But as soon as a man wants to talk now and say, look, you're not so great yourself, all of a sudden now, well, you're female bashing, or you know, we need to come together and stop finger pointing. I understand this, Yvonne. I'm not suggesting that we go back to some ancient patriarchy where women were in the kitchen and that's all you do. No, I'm not suggesting that at all. What I'm talking about is where we are now. And you're right about picking up the baton, men left. And as I said, I'm going to get to that at some point. It doesn't look like tonight, but I want to get to that. And I want to suggest a way forward. So this is not about just me sounding off. I need to sound off because women need a reality check. I think that some of these women live in a construct in their own mind about who they are, right? They've done a lot of dirt. They buried it somewhere in a field. I've exhumed it, done a post-mortem, looked at the maggots, and I want to show you the maggots. Now, whether it applies to you personally or not, doesn't matter. It applies to some women. Yeah. And a lot of men have been burnt financially, burnt emotionally, and some of these men were good men. So this whole thing about women are good, men are bad, and carrying out that narrative, we've got to bring that to an end. Because everybody's got dirt. Once we acknowledge that, hold that, right? I'm not judging you if you did that, then don't judge me. But let's now come together and say, you know what? How can we learn from our mistakes and talk to the next generation and our grandkids who are coming up in this immoral society and teach them about the importance of family, what a family is, break it all down, do the basics. So that's the point. That's why I came.
Yeah, absolutely. It's only because you just said you knew what I was thinking, so that was what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything, so it's all right.
I'm a trained psychic.
Yeah, no, you're not. You're off. Mr. C, come in.
Thank you very much. So, 3 quick points. Number 1, if you are going to point a finger, it's best to do it like this, because then the fingers are pointing all in the right direction. You.
All right.
Number 2, if we I digress slightly. If we think about Meghan Markle and what she's had to experience since she's been in a relationship with Prince Harry, and ladies, I just want you to think about all of the empathy that you've poured out to her after what she's had to feel and endure for that brief moment in time that she's had with Prince Harry, and the effect that it's had on her mental state, and the fact that you can empathize with that. And here's Tony talking about 40 years that for us as men, we've had to just take the barrage from yourselves, from society, from all walks of life, telling us that we're whatless, we're this, we're that, we're this, we're this, we're that, we're no good, blah, 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 we left the home, and we've just had to take it. So imagine that now. It's the same way how you're thinking about Meghan. Think about how it is for men and how it's had an effect on some men's mental state, their ability of how they look at themselves, the ability of how they now relate to their sons, their daughters, their wives, their lovers. Think of how that same kind of mental abuse, or that how can I put it, that defamation of character continuously for not just 1 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, but for 40 years in so many different levels of society. You see it on newspapers, media. So just think about how men are possibly feeling mentally. The other thing what I want to pick up is thank you so much for being so honest, Yvonne, and actually saying that, you know, through your experiences with men, you know, you have to vocalize how you feel sometimes. And you know what it is? A lot of times there's a lot of good people who are vocalizing things at the wrong time, and the wrong type of ears are listening. The amount of times I've had conversations with females who are talking about their baby father, or the father of their child, or the relationship they're in, and there's a child of the same sex in earshot, and all that child is hearing is that, yo, men are worthless, men are no good, men are this. That has an effect on that child's psyche as how they see themselves, because at the end of the day, your first levels in life are your mother and your father. And if you're a male child and your mother is speaking about the highest male figure in your life in a detrimental way in your earshot, then who do you look up to as a male role figure? And I know people are gonna say, oh, my uncle, my this and that, but you got to think about the psychological damage that it still does to that particular child. And there's a lot of us who have got childhood trauma that we're still trying to deal with in our adult life. So we have to start some honest conversations with regards to some of the things which are happening within our communities, which are happening within our lives, which have caused this problem, what we've got here now. Number one, the destabilization of the family. Whether you want to talk about whether, you know, it's a proud thing to say, oh yeah, but men down tools and us women, we picked it up and look at us. But, you know, then if that's the case, if you guys are doing so good, then why are so many of our young men running around, committing suicide, killing each other, if they've been raised in that positive place and palace that you've been creating? How is this possible?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking a question.
Okay,
how is it possible? If women have been doing such a grand job and such a good job, now that the males are out of the, how do we have this problem with our males? How do we have so many young females not in happy relationships? How is this possible?
Can I answer that?
Of course you can.
Well, in my experience, it's because they don't know who they are. That's why. They have no relationship with themselves, you know, and that can stem from their environment, because we know that we are our environment first. That is the most thing that gives us the tools of who we are. It's our environment, it's how we grow up. And so sometimes, you know, some of us may have been raised in a perfect family, but many of us weren't. And many of us have to find our way, whether it is, and I can only go by my experience, right? So I can only judge it from what I've been through. I grew up in a matriarchal home. My mother wasn't alive. My dad was. I grew up with my father. So the reasons why I am the way that, and let me be honest, it wasn't a great childhood. Let me just be honest. But actually, there are things that I learned what not to do, so that I could raise my sons in a single parent family home, which I did. Father was outside of the home and had access in whenever, because in my belief, the father is equally as important as the mother. It takes two. But we're not talking about me per se. I know that there are other people out there, other women who will forbid or take their children away. I have that in my family from my nephew that's going on right now. My nephew has gone to court so many times to see his child and has won. Thank God. But, you know, I'm not saying, you know, when you're talking about the suicide, and there are other things. Yes, the family parts are there, but there are other things. There are drugs. There are all kinds of things that impose on a young person why they make the choices that they do. And part of that, yes, is their environment. Sometimes it's friends, it's influences from outside. It doesn't necessarily mean it is down to the mother or the father. And sometimes we have to be honest and say some men just go about their business. They want to have sex and they want to have all this, and that part of the relationship is left down to the woman. The woman's left holding the baby. Sometimes, you know, it's you know, caring for your sexual health, which we covered a few weeks ago. You know, it's those things too. So you eliminate those things. But again, I come back to responsibility. If you open up your foot and you're a man who's going in between those legs, both of them must take responsibility for that child. And very often, it is the woman who's left because she's the incubator. She is the one left holding the baby.
So, Mr. C, let me just pick up on something you said, which I found was very interesting. You see, when women have children that go to university and get a first-class honours degree, and they're at the graduation ceremony, they'll be the first ones to jump up and clap their hands and talk about how they did a great job. If it wasn't for me, my boy wouldn't have got there. That same boy gets 15 years for armed robbery. Oh, it was his dad's, because his dad wasn't around. Do you see how the narrative? So when it comes to glory for the children, the women want to claim that glory. But when it's something bad that happens, it's got something to do with his dad. He's not seen his dad. And that point you made is very good, which is basically women are in charge of the family now. We are a matriarchal society. We have been for 3 decades. So when we look at some of these kids out there, right, some of these girly boys we have, who's responsible for them? Because you can't say the men, because the men are not there. Who's bringing up these children?
The women.
Exactly. So the blame for some of these errant children must lie with the women.
What I'm saying is that, yes, we are blaming, but what is the point of that? And again, and I know you're saying, oh, somebody has to take, but yeah, the women are raising the children. So if okay, you said about a child having a first.
It's so nice to see you take responsibility, Yvonne. Thank you.
You have to take responsibility for both sides. If my son goes to prison, I have to take responsibility for that. Right? But if my daughter has a first, which she will do, I have to take responsibility for that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Responsibility. Everybody has theirs. But the man equally, hold on, the same way that I'm taking responsibility for everything is the same for my counterpart. Takes responsibility for
absolutely. And I said, I mean, when I get round to them, and it's just because I have to. I'm trying to get women to come to the table and let's talk about. Okay, you got us. We're all doing dirt. Let's talk now, right? And I have to do this. I don't want to do this, but you've never allowed, not you, but women in general, never allowed men to speak. Don't want to hear man's voice. You take advice from your friends about man. You don't ask man how they feel. A lot of you don't care. Some women don't even respect men, just generally from their soul. You can tell when they talk to you, the manner, the tone, the raising of the voice. Shut up. Sorry to cut you. You know, you're not listening when you try to talk, when you try to express ourselves. Man up. What mean your feelings? You know, all of these sort of disrespectful comments keep gnawing away at a man day after day, year after year. And, you know, we just get this impression, why are we wasting our time? We can't even talk to you and tell you anything, because as soon as we try and say, look, this is what we find a problem with you, women start deflecting and want to go back. Now, how about you then? Now, how about you? Well, yeah. Well, you asked me to speak, so now you're asking me to speak. You know, I'm talking about a metaphorical situation. I'm with a woman, and I'm saying I've got this problem. She goes, "Oh, what about you then? What about you then?" Well, hold on. You said I could speak and tell you anything. I'm now telling you anything, and now you're deflecting it back to me. And so, when men have a situation like that, they don't want to talk. That's why they shut down. That's why they can't be bothered, because they don't feel that they're listened to, and they can't be taken seriously. So you know what they say? You know what? Just leave the women. Just let them do whatever they want.
Okay.
You see?
I'm getting you now. I'm so men want to be heard, but you know.
We don't have to agree on we're men, you're women.
No, I agree with you. I actually, I'm listening to you, and I agree with you. But when I go, I'm having thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
So when you're saying men are not allowed to speak, my question is why? Why not just speak? Why not use your voice? Is the most powerful tool you have. Why give it away?
Okay. It's not that you. Yeah, go on, Mr. C, go on.
Sorry, so I'll give an example how men's voice have changed based on just a little stuff what Tony's saying. So, for example, he set it up that, you know, let's be honest. I don't know what people's age group is here, but if we take it back to say like 1980, where if you was a female and you were 16, 17, say 17, 18, and you was in a relationship with your boyfriend, yeah, what happens is two of you are equal, yeah. You embrace after a little lovely moment in night moves or shinolas or whatever, and sperm and egg meet and they form, yeah. What happens now with that level pegging is that automatically when that girl's pregnant, she can go to the council and register for a flat, yeah. What happens now is that the council will say, we'll give you a flat in your name, but you can't have no man in there. So what happens now? They start off at a level playing field, and now they go into a home where it's going to be a family home, but yet this guy's name is not on the papers. So what happens now when they catch up in a Sutton? She knows she's got the power over him because she now holds the keys and the papers to the premises where they live. So straight away now that shift happens like this. So she starts having a different kind of conversation to him. And again, it's the same kind of thing, like, you know, you hear it where women will say, hey, what? If it's not your place, you need to take the bass out of your voice before or go back to your mother's house. So these are some of the little systematic things which have happened to men over years. Don't get me wrong, you've got some men like for me, my 3 sons, my first son, I humbled myself. And, you know, certain things what happened, I should have put on my balaclava, climbed through a window and put the pillow over her head and make her understand herself, but I didn't. With my last 2 sons, the mother can never, ever, when I'm talking to my son, she can never interject in that conversation. She has to wait until that conversation's finished, because my sons can never see me as a man having a man-to-man conversation with them and their mother come in and save them. Can't happen. Cannot happen. But a lot of men are fearful of the fact that the position has changed, the power has changed. So what happens is they take the bass out of their voice. And some of the things what they should be saying, they feel like, boy, I don't want to upset her, you know, because once she loses her temper because she's a Scorpio and everything, you know, she just says things off the top of her head. And that's what happens. You kick a man out and he ends up in some next gal's yard. And that next girl will, oh, don't worry, man, come and stay over mine and blah, blah, blah. And that's how this whole thing starts from.
Okay.
So there's so many different factors which have caused the reason why men have no bass in their voice.
Okay. You know, because I want us to do this. I want us to do the thing, but we're in conversation. So, guys, I'm just openly inviting you back to the show. I am, because this is good conversation. But I just want to address what Mr. C said about in the 80s and stuff. Slightly older than where I am, but I recognise Shinola, all of them plays there because I used to rate there. But when you talk about she gets a council place and then he's not in the place, why is that?
No, he is in the place.
He's in the place.
He's in the place, but his name's not on. Yeah. So what you'll find, like,
why is that? Can I just address why that is?
Okay, you tell me why that is.
I believe in this. God bless the child who has his own, right? And some you as my children, all of them from boy to girl. God bless the child who has his own. Have your own things. Listen, back in the day when those things were happening, the reason why men didn't have their name on council thing is because they was doing a thing on social. Yeah, they were not paying. Either the woman was on social or he was on social, and they would not have been able to get their benefits if they were known to be together, or their benefits would have been dramatically reduced. So that is the reason why. So if you're having children and you're living that life, the issue here for me is taking responsibility. If each person, each part of them took responsibility, she's with the man, he's with the woman, and you're living in a house, put the house in both names and be honest enough to say, this is how we're living, whatever benefits we're getting, we're going to get together. But that was the issue back in the day. They didn't want to share benefits, and it was the benefits why she would get the place and he wouldn't. He could stay there 3 nights or 4 nights a week, and I don't think much has changed now, to be honest, or he can't live there. But no, why not just move in? Why not be a family? Why make it about money?
Because that's how the system was set in those days. And also, I think, 100% you're correct. No, I say 100% you're correct. But what I'd like to say in addition to that is, you mentioned something which you said benefits, which is another thing. The amount of independent women I meet who are taking benefits, and I was like, that don't make no sense. How can you be independent and taking child benefit? That don't make no sense.
Well, child benefit back then was for everybody. So child benefit is a thing that you'd get anyway. That's not, it's social, it's income support.
It don't make no sense. That means you're not independent. If you're on income support, you're not independent.
Yeah, income support, you're dependent.
So you can't have, that's what I'm saying. And that's where part of the confusion is, because you've got people who want to take championship labels when really you're at the cash point asking for change.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree with you. If you're on income support, you're not independent. If a child benefit is slightly different, everybody got that. Whether it doesn't matter how much you earn or didn't earn, you get that. And now it's if you earn over a certain amount, you don't get it. But back in the day, everybody got it. So if you was on income, so what I'm saying here is, I think that again, it's about taking responsibility. You can't blame the woman on that one, because the man who was in that relationship didn't take responsibility.
Not blaming the woman. I'm saying that there's a system. There was a system in place. This is. I want people to be clear here. I'm not blaming the woman. I'm saying that what happened was you had a man and a woman who were in level pegging, and what happened? The system changed the positions of influence and of power. Nothing to do with the man, nothing to do with the woman. And a lot of times things have been shifted. This is why Tony's using this example of feminism and showing you the different strains of feminism and how through protesting, through influence, they've changed the structure of how things used to be. And this is one of the reasons why we have some of the problems we've got now. It's not necessarily a man's fault or a woman's fault. It's a systematic thing which has been done by design because they have a bigger plan. So if we use the example of Black Lives Matter, the organization Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter is extreme feminism. Their objective and their goal is nothing to do with saving black lives at all. It's got nothing to do with black males, especially that. If you look at their manifesto, you look at how their organization is set up, they are designed to eliminate black men from the family. That is the point of that organization. So again, if we don't have this conversation about it, people would not be aware of it. People will be like, Black Lives Matter, I'll be wearing the t-shirts and everything. This time people are sending them money, and they now are, because they are systematically trying to influence what we see as the so-called norm in a family structure. And the way how they'll do this is because what they'll do now, they'll start making black programs, black films, black documentaries, which will, what you'll see now, you won't see a male and a female part, you'll see a female and a female part. So, you know, I'll give you a prime example. If we look at programs like Empire.
Don't watch it, but I get you. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you.
Programs like The Chi, where, you know, it's a absolutely fantastic program. And what happens in season 1, you see a traditional family. You may see a black mother struggling on her own. The next thing you know, by season 3, the black mother has now got a partner who she's married, but it's another female. So what I'm saying is, through funding, through strategy, these people can shift what we see as the norm in society, or the norm in relationships, or the norm in whatever, to somewhere else. And I'm saying that, and what Tony's showing you is that feminism, extreme feminism, has played a part in what we're experiencing today as black people. And we have to be aware of it, and then start thinking, how can we navigate our way through it to get back to where we need to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you for that clarification of, because that, I think the example of Empire and those other shows gives a good example of the extreme feminism. But like you say, there are 3 different types of feminism, and I think it's really important that we do discuss those 3, but also bring in the elements of, you know, we have to be aware. And I think it's the awareness that we don't have, maybe, of these things, as to why some of the issues that we are having now. But I would just say what I said before in terms of, you know, we can say that, you know, the system and all of this, but we also have to also say and be clear that that's choice. And those couples who lived like that, that played the system, that had the council place, that had the man living there with his name on the property and all of that, yeah, that was a choice. That was they chose to do that because they didn't have to live like that. They could have chose to live in that house together as a couple and raise their child. And some did, a lot never. So, you know, again, the blame game, that's the easy thing. It's easy to say this and this, the establishment, oh, it's this. But again, we all have choice. We do have choice if we have the information. If we don't have the information, that's one thing. But when we have the information, we make a choice. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to live in my council house with my children and and tell everybody that my baby father don't, and I hate that terminology, my baby father doesn't live there, when everybody knows he does and is making a home. So if that's the case, be honest enough and say, this is the father of my child or my children. We're making life together. We're not married, but we're making life together. And his name is on that property too. How about that? It would alleviate a lot of the problem. And these are the issues, but it was down to choice. And he made the choice and so did she. So both of them have to take responsibility for that. And that's not about the establishment. That's about them. That's about them trying to make money and have more. That's choice.
Well said, Yvonne. But I think, unfortunately, you have to admit that black men have been carrying the blame burden for far too long. In terms of, I mean, it's taken us 40 years to get to a point now where at least we can start seeing that we're both to blame, and it's taken this long for us to kind of come to that point. So for me personally, I mean, I wouldn't want to spend my life being a male rights advocate and bashing on women. But my thing is more to do with, well, okay, if we recognize that we've both been playing a part, and we understand that there are agendas that are at work outside the community that comes into the community, and that we, through, as many viewers have said, through television watching, because television is the propaganda tool of the government, right? And whatever government policies want to be pushed, they push it through the television, and they put it in your soap operas, and they make plots around these characters that they want you to be sympathetic towards, so that you can start creating arguments for them. And a lot of television, let's be honest, is aimed at women. Mostly adverts on TV are aimed at women.
Yeah, because they're the
Women are
buyers.
TV's biggest audience. They know this because the social engineers know that they get through a society by getting to the women. Why? Because there's no man there to turn the TV off and say, stop watching that rubbish.
It's not only that, it's women are the consumers. Women are.
But what I'm saying is, if a man was around, the consuming wouldn't be as much as it is.
Because football would be on.
Well, no, there's that, but also, if you've got joint money, there's no way a woman should be having 185 pairs of shoes that she's using as door stoppers or selling on or trying to sell on eBay. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there would be some balance in the way the household budget would be spent, but there's not, because there's no man around. There's no moderation. So obviously, women do whatever they go with, whatever feelings they have. So they had no desire to consume, but now they've seen that advert or they've seen that holiday destination, or they want it, and they might even want it when they don't have the money. They'll find the money.
They deserve the shoes, man. They deserve the shoes. Yeah. They deserve the shoes. But you know what I've always found funny though, in that whole thing is, like, you know, growing up, hearing a lot about demanding and of equal pay for women and men. I've always wondered that every time I've gone like West End, like I go in something like Top Shop, and Top Shop's got like around about 17 floors for women, and Top Man's got like 2. And I'm thinking, but hold on, if men earn more money than women, how women have 17 floor and man only got 2? This don't make no sense to me. How?
Because they're the consumers. Because women buy for their partners. That's the assumption. Let me just say that. That's the assumption in sales and marketing. You market to women, you sell more.
You know how old this leather jacket? This leather jacket is older than my eldest son, who is 33. Yeah.
See,
how many leather jackets on a woman I've dashed with this year? I'm playing. Don't pay me no mind.
You've got a point. Men generally don't have as much clothes as women. Women tend to have more, I believe. Right? I might be wrong. There are some men who have a whole heap of clothes, but I do believe that women are the ones who go out and buy. That's why. Television. And you raised a great point about television, because that is what feeds us. That is the whole perception of how life should be. And we have this fairy tale, both men and women who watch it, right? And I have to make that clear, because I am my own example. I don't watch TV. This is my TV. I don't subscribe. For years, I might watch called Scandal on the laptop, but I'm not in the TV like so. So I think that when you have these things that are selling these things to us, yes, those are the impressions that are imprinted. And maybe you mentioned, Tony, about the budgets of the household. The budgets of the household, and perhaps the budgeting would be better if a man was there. And that might be the case, or it might not be the case, because when you look at how many women have bought houses on their own, and it shouldn't be on their own. Let me just say that. Not that it shouldn't be. I think it would be nice if it was a joint thing, but there are many women out there who have mortgages on their own and have never had a man in. You know, they've actually gone to get a mortgage on their own without a partner because they can, or they want that. And sometimes it's been hard.
Well, I can equally say there are women who've got lots of houses on the back of a divorce. I mean, that doesn't really mean.
Yeah, as well, yeah.
You know, so I mean, the point here being is look, ultimately, we've all got a lot to answer for, right?
Yeah.
And I think that our generation, this Generation X, we've lost a lot of credibility with our own kids, right? And the reason for that is that the example that we've set has not been a good one. And look how some of our children, how some of our sons and daughters are acting up.
That's on us.
Right? Exactly. Of course it is.
That's on us.
We can talk about the environment and the system, but the household from which they came, they grew up on that philosophy, and they took that philosophy out into the world with them. And a lot of the philosophy that we receive, right, from our parents who themselves were broken, was a broken philosophy. We were broken. We went out there, met someone else that was broken. 2 broken people have a broken kid. And that cycle continues. And then we spend all our time arguing with each other, while governments who took advantage of this mess, rubbed their hands, made it easier to control society, because once you got men and women at each other's throats, you've got that nation. You've got them. Because they're so busy fighting each other.
Exactly. And then next thing you know, the government says to you to wear 2 masks, and like an idiot you are.
Yeah, did you hear me kiss my tea? It's true. But it's, again, that's a perfect example. And I agree. I agree with some of what you're saying, a lot of what you're saying. I do agree with that. But there are some things I'm like, we're not taking responsibility here. And responsibility is a big thing for me. We have to stop the blaming and just take responsibility for men and women. But you mentioned something. I just wanted to just jump on.
Yeah.
What stood out for me, and we haven't really mentioned it, but I'm just going to push it that way, is the lack of respect for male leadership.
Right.
And that's, I want to kind of
steer it. Right. So tell me what you think when you hear that male leadership. Tell me what feeling comes to mind, or what comes into your mind when you hear that?
What comes into my mind I actually saw something today. I wish I'd given it as a thing to play, actually. And it was a woman, a woman and a man talking about, he brought up male leadership to her. And she was saying, that for a man to lead her, he can't come with BS, basically. He has to be leading her somewhere. And I think, we got to remember that we are more educated than what our parents were. All of us are, yeah? And
hold on, we need to clarify that we're more educated than our parents were in schooling. Yes. In schooling. Because some of our parents have done like 30, 50 years together in a relationship, and some of us haven't even got past 15 months.
It's true. Yeah. It's very true. Yeah. But I think, again, even you bringing that up, that the mindset was different. It's when they came, like when my parents came from the West Indies, from Jamaica, they had the mindset, we've come to build something. We've come to make life. And that's how I heard them talk. We're making life. They had us as their children, but they worked. One worked nights, one worked days, and they did things. And as the older children got older, they were then taught how to cook and to look after the younger ones. And so our home was like a community.
It was organic.
That's how I was raised. And so for me, that principle still remains. But the thing is, if one has a mindset and the other one doesn't have the same mindset, that can't work, because 2 cannot walk together unless they are in agreement. And if that agreement is not the same, it's not going to work. So first and foremost, I'm going to say, because this is a relationship show, and I'm saying to the ladies and the man, before you open up your foot, or your knees, and before you want to dive in there, start talking and ask the question, what is it you really want? And be honest. Don't just, she looked good, he looked good, and then you go in and then all of a sudden you met baby and you don't have an agreement. It can't work, and it will never work. And that's why a lot of relationships do not work. Our parents had an agreement. Even if one came first and the other one followed 2, 3, 5 years later, from that agreement, from the first one left to the 5 years later for the second one to reach here, they had an agreement and they stuck to it. That don't happen now. It does not happen now. We don't have that gumption. We don't have that backbone. We don't have that mindset. And for me, that is the issue. It's the mindset. So leadership, when I think about male leadership, I'd love a man to lead. I'd love it. Wow. It's exhausting being in leading a household. It's exhausting. You do it.
No, I can imagine. But I think in many ways that genie's out the bottle now, and you'll find a lot of women that are not interested in male leadership. Right? They're, as far as they're concerned, they've been leading for 30 years and they can continue leading. And the fact that a man could come and suggest something that might oppose a woman's view on how things are done, for some women, it's a no-no. So they like the man, right? But the man must be in agreement. And if the man comes with an opposing view, if he comes with an opposing view that she doesn't like, then it's a problem. And this is what I'm talking about, what radical feminism is. Radical feminism is this doctrine and this idea that women stand alone. And we as men have to take responsibility for it, because as you've pointed out, we did drop the baton. We had the rod of authority and we left it. And you picked it up and the government said, you know what? You can take this rod of iron and beat this man around the head senseless and you'll never have to let it go again. And that's what's been happening. And now we're at a stage now where we have swathes of single women in their 40s and 50s and 60s on their own, been on their own for 10 years, 5 years, 8 years, never
living their best life.
Right, living their best life on the Zoom. You've seen them in their big old nice house. Because
they're not feeling their best life.
I watch your house, I see how nice your house is, and I send you a message, how are you? Right? So I see you on the Zoom sitting in your DFS sofa looking so sad and lonely with your little, White Zinfandel, drinking there, listening to the music. Oh, I got a great time, having a great time, but no man around for miles. Your whole house is empty. You go to work, you come back, there's no man in the house. And how are we living like this? How are women living like this? How is it that when we go out to events, you have a whirl of women, it's like a lesbian fest, right? And 5 men. I was saying, Mr. C, not too long ago before the COVID ended, I was out somewhere, 250 women, me the only man was in the place.
And he never even called me to come and help him, He never even called me to come and help him.
How bad-minded is that? You couldn't even call your brother to come help you with all that woman.
He had 125 line up on one wall and 125 line up on the other wall, and he just danced along one wall, and greedy little ram scram,
You just got to the next one now.
I had to work the room a little bit. But the point is we have a situation right now.
We do. And I think just
unpleasant. It is unpleasant for women. Yes, ladies, you've done well. You've done the education. You've got the house, but you're on your own. A lot of you are on your own.
And that's the worst thing. And that's the worst thing, because you see what happens now is that, ladies, you've acquired everything that you need and what you desire and which you richly deserve, to be honest with you. But there's that one little missing ingredient that you don't have. And that's why some of you now are taking that one thing and you're taking it on lease. Some of you are taking it on hire purchase. Yeah.
What is that thing?
I'm talking about a man. Yeah. So what happens is now so some women are taking in men on hire purchase, on lease agreements. So, it's the same thing like what Tony was saying at the beginning, is that, you're a woman of high esteem, absolute full class pedigree. However, you're now borrowing somebody else's man because you're saying that, what, as long as he tells me the truth and we keep it real, I can fit him into my calendar. So what's happened is the moral compass has now dropped, and that's because that moral compass is dropped, it allows men to say, well, you know what, I can have the best of both worlds here, because she's not looking no commitment. So I can see her on Monday, Tuesday. That other one there is not looking for no commitment. I can go there Saturday, Sunday. And you know what? I don't have to commit to nothing because they're willing to accept this. They're quite happy with this. And because there's so many of them, I'm sport for choice.
So on one hand,
I can keep turning this over every 4 months. I can keep turning this over every 4 months and find something fresh and go because there's so many of them.
Right. And you see, so on the one hand,
I'm willing to accept this situation.
Right. So on one hand, it's worked out well for you, a lot of you women materially. You've done well. But from a family life point of view, a lot of you are hopeless. You're in a hopeless situation. And the thing is, you're not getting any younger. So you've acquired all these lovely material things, right? But you've got nothing to show for it. Your kids are grown up, they're left home, right? And you've got nothing. And what's happening now is that this radical feminism mentality, which women are living out with this independent thinking, is going to play right into the hands of men who are going to say, well, these women don't want no commitment because they're not serious. They're not taking no talk from no man. And since there's 7 women to 1 man, I can pick and choose and offer her friends with benefits. Why do I have to offer a long-term relationship and living with her together? This woman had no man for years. I could just tell her, you could take a piece or take nothing, because there are other women there who are going to accept that. So what radical feminism does, it's promised you something on one end, but it's betraying you on the other end. And women will see that as they get older.
So what you're saying is what it's doing is tampering with the value, the actual value of what a woman ideally wants. Yeah. Because I think we've got a lot of women on here, and I don't think any women, there would be many women, let me address that, who would want to be on their own. No. Many women want to find partners, want to be with a partner for themselves. They don't want the man piece. They don't want crumbs. Right. The whole piece of the bread, the biscuit. And
I want them to have men. I don't want them. I don't want them to be lonely. I want them to have men. But if they don't understand how they're being engineered to act out the way they are, and that men start as men, we learned to hunt women since we were 14, 15. We can smell you. We know if your esteem is great.
12, 10.
Right, 12, 10, right.
That's what that was about. Go down. Okay.
We can tell what your self-esteem is. We could tell if you're a frigid type. We could tell if you're kind of relaxed, easygoing. We know all these things. We learn through trial and error. Imagine 40 years of hunting. We make mistakes. We get blown off. We come back again. We learn a different technique. It's successful. We keep applying that technique. We get success. So we know a lot about you when hunting you. We know that you can blow us off, and we can go to your friend and have a chance with your friend. Right? We know how to work our way around women. Yeah, we're well seasoned, well practiced veterans in getting women, right? And we know as soon as we meet a woman, the way she speaks, the way she is, we put her in a box in our mind. Right? Okay. So we can say, this woman potentially, she's like my type. She looks like, she speaks. I might be interested in meeting her for a date, and on the date we might consider whether or not you're long-term relationship material or you're material for the bedroom. That's how we look at you straight. So you might have a situation where you're a really good-looking woman. You got a nice figure. We like your shape and everything like that. And we think on the basis of your shape and how you look, we would consider dating you. Then you start coming out with this independent woman talk, and we go, you know what? A bedroom thing that. That's how, and then we put you in that classification. And then what we do is then we pretend that we want to have a relationship with you to get what we want, to extract the juices. And then after a period of time, we're off.
But that's deceitful.
No, it's not deceitful. It's not deceitful, because you know what? This is what we've got to understand, is that if we think what we've got now is bad, we need to take a look at the younger generation, because this is what's happening with the younger generation, is that we've empowered women to the point where Cardi B can do a song called Wet Ass Pussy, and all of our young people are listening to it. But if you look now, if we look at our daughters, our nieces, our goddaughters, if we look at their Instagram, their TikTok, 9 out of 10 pictures, they are sexualizing themselves in those photos. So many of them take pictures now where if they're not pushing their batty out towards the camera, they're not happy with the picture. If they're not, when they're dancing with their girls, if their hands are not on their knees and their batty is bouncing in the air, they haven't had a good night out. If their face is not completely contoured with makeup and European hair weave and everything, they don't feel confident enough to go outside. So what happens now is that they've shown all of these images. They put up all these images. Look at me, blah, 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 and all of that kind of stuff. And the young men are looking at that, they're saying to their brethren, boy, look at this. Whoa, I'm linking her on Saturday, you know. He links her on Saturday. Sunday morning when he wakes up, he sees somebody completely different. He can't go and show his friends the Sunday morning girl. He can't.
I'm laughing. I shouldn't laugh, but you're right. I get what you're saying. I hear you.
So what happens now? He can't say to that woman, oh my God, you look, when I saw you in your whole Instagram, you look like a 9 out of 10. But now when I see you in your natural state, yeah, in comparison, you're a 4 out of 10. I've already told you to my boys as a 9 out of 10. I can't come and have a 4 out of 10 conversation. So you know what? On that reason, I'm out. He's not going to say that to her. He's just not going to phone her anymore. He's going to be polite. But so what's happening is that our females now, their confidence levels are dropping, and they're more and more relying on this false image that they've got of themselves, and them two are compromising what they're trying to do with themselves and their attitudes and their beliefs and their morals in order to keep man. And what it is now is I see young women and women in our age group who are saying things like, oh yeah, I can get any man. Yes, I've seen a pregnant, ugly woman with one eye. She can get man. Is have you got the morals, and the decency to keep man? That's what we need to be. So we've got to look at ourselves, and we have to really look at the generation coming under. Because again, with my sons, I have to have this conversation with them about what are they looking for in a young woman. And I have to try and navigate them from the whole Instagram sexy, pretty looks and contour face and everything, which is not real, to looking behind what is a natural looking girl, what is her background, what is her appearance like, and try and navigate them from all the oversized, overtly sexy kind of image, and try and make them try and look and find a girl who's got substance. And it's hard. Right. Because if I was a young man now, my moral compass wouldn't even exist. Right. It wouldn't even exist.
You know what? I love everything that you've said, and I agree with everything that you said, Mr. C. And just to go over to Tony, you know, you asked me what is my idea of male leadership. You see, Mr. C, as he's talking about his sons and he's directing them. That's male leadership to me. That's what male leadership is to me. And when I look at that, and I'm trying to keep up with the comments that come in. But when I think about, I was sitting here listening to Mr. C and listening to you and listening to the way that you depict it and how we are raising our younger ones, especially that. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I've actually done a good job with my kids, and I'm going to take the moment to pat myself on the back. And the reason being is because when I look at my daughter, who is 22 years old, you see all that winding up and all of those. I don't see that. I don't see that on her Instagram. I don't see none of that. But it starts with us. It's us. This is about us. Right. And how we raise our children, and the narrative that we sell our children. Right. You know, and how they respond to that.
Mr. C made a good point about Cardi B there, and someone, I can't remember who said it, referred to the dancehall music, right? So if you look at the music in our culture, for example, it promotes
sex,
a hedonistic lifestyle, right? It promotes feminism, right? Girl, you have your own adore key, and right. I am bad and wicked in a bed. So male sexuality and the whole heap of girl you need, right, has got into the consciousness of a lot of men who believe that is the standard. There are a lot of men who believe that if you have one woman, you're not a real man. You need a whole heap of woman, right? And there are women who are subconsciously also being programmed by these songs, even though they don't say, I'm not listening to lyrics. You're being programmed by this. So outside of just a normal household, for example, you've got all these influences coming in, and parenting involves not just making sure your kids are right, but actually paying attention to what they're listening to, paying attention to what they're reading, paying attention to what they're watching, and so children need an all-round sort of moderation and guidance. You can't just allow your kids obviously to go in their room and do whatever they please, because it's easy to gravitate to things that are immoral. And it's tempting.
Listen, and that's so true. I mean, like I remember the time when one of my sons, I'm not going to say which one, his mother came to me and says, you know, oh my God, I found this content on his phone. It's absolutely horrendous and everything. You know, what are we gonna do? And I said, okay, what kind of thing? She was saying, you know, pornography. And I was like, okay, chill, man. He's like 14. He's going to discover porn. She goes, no, it's not like the porn that we used to see when we was 14. It's really, I'm really concerned and everything. And, you know, he's got to stop. He's got to stop. And I was like, well, number one, him now got to stop. Me tell you something straight. From the first time you detect it, did you ever think to yourself, oh no, this is too, I'm going to put this down now until I turn around about 22? No, you didn't. You kept on going once that's popped. But the only thing we can do is have a conversation with them as regards to because what we failed to understand is that what we used to look at and watch when we were children, what is out there now is a completely different world. Completely different world. And if we don't start having these real conversations with our children, with our young people about what they're watching, you know, the fact that we all think that our 14-year-old son is an angel. No, him and his friends are sharing videos of banging, anal, or every single kind of debauchery thing you can think of. That's the norm for them, because that's the norm in porn now. So that's what they're seeing, that's what they're sharing. So you have to have a conversation with them on all of those different levels. And the thing is, the truth is, a lot of us are not even confident to have those conversations with our own friends. We don't even tell our own friends we're doing anal. Never mind have that conversation with your child. So we have to be real with who we are and where things are with our children. Because if not, then what's going to happen is your 14-year-old son is going to share something with one of his 14-year-old friends. They're gonna find it on their phone, and next thing you know, your son's gonna be on a sexual offenders register. And this is where it's at in this day and age. It's as simple as that.
Good. I agree. I totally agree with what you said there. The responsibility lies with us, male and female. One of the questions I think there was, are men alone to blame for the state of relationships that we're in? No, absolutely not. Both are to blame. Both are to blame. And I think the conversation here today is showing that in every way possible. Both are to blame. We must, as men and women, take responsibility for where we are and how we are forming our relationships. I know so many, just doing this show, so many single women, so many single men. And I asked the question, well, what if you're single and she's single? Why you can't just come together and talk? But the issue is, it's a lack of communication. In my head, to my belief, it's a lack of communication. We are not communicating on a high enough level to each other. How we're communicating is that we're blaming. And yes, things have happened, but we have to draw a line in the sand, I think. And I think we have to start to be honest and take responsibility and apologize and forgive for what has gone on in the past. Otherwise, we will not be able to move forward. We will not.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
You know what, Yvonne? Just hearing that makes me glad that I turned up on the show.
Do you know what? I have to say this. I love you guys. And I really appreciate you guys coming on here. It's so refreshing. And we do have some men who come on here, and I love them equally. I love it when men want to talk. I feel like men don't talk enough. And when you're talking about the men don't have the platform, that saddens me. So I'm saying this, I'm making this platform available to men who want to talk. Whatever the issue, come and talk. But know that, here we go.
Here's the thing, if we come back, obviously, I don't want to. Well, if you invite us back,
yeah, you're invited.
I don't want to talk about this again in terms of blame, right? I said what I had to say. You like it, you don't like it. You heard. You can't unhear what you've heard.
Yeah.
So now that I've said that, and now we've come to some consensus that we're both to blame, let's now talk about what the next step needs to be.
Okay.
Right?
That's why we love you.
Which is moving things forward.
Yeah.
And let me talk to some of the men about certain things that we need to do to make that happen. Because ultimately, men don't care what the women say. You are the leaders, right? You're just not leading. That's all it is, right? You're not leading. You don't have your testicles in place, and therefore you don't have the fortitude to take up that baton and lead like you're supposed to. So that's what we need to start doing. And don't worry that the women have been leading for 30 years and going to give you all this kind of talk. Stand up and resist that.
Come on.
Because women may not like what they hear from you, but then they will respect you as long as you're respectful to them. But make your point and be firm, right? People said to me, my male friends, some of them watching this show said, boy, you're going to get crucified tonight. They're going to stone you. I said, listen, I don't business. I'm just going to say what I have to say. They like it, they don't like it. And look, we've now come to a consensus because all three of us have been having a mature conversation. So as far as men, we've got work to do. We've got a baton to pick up. And we got to be the men that we were born to be. We're biologically made in a certain way that's different from women. And we can work with women. Don't hate the women for what they've done. Understand that we have to take some of that responsibility because of what we've done in the past. So once we understand that, and we can talk to our women in a respectful way, but always be firm. Don't cower to them. Don't cower to their reactions if they jump up and down the screen. That's the problem with a lot of men. We're scared of women. We're scared of your reaction. We're scared of your disapproval. We have to stop caring about that.
Yeah. And the thing is,
what's firm, no matter how popular or unpopular it is, say what you need to say, and then let her deal with it.
Because a lot of men have got mummy issues. So when the woman starts throwing, it's like, oh God, it's like my mum. Here we go. Oh my God, you go. Yeah. I understand. It's not your mother you're talking to. It's your woman. You understand? It's your rib. So, two things, men. You know, Tony said what he said, and next time we're invited on this platform, it's time to get serious as regards to, you know, movement of your people. How are we going to move forward? And men, I just got two things to say to the men. I live by this mantra. We only got two choices as men when it comes to our relationship with women. We either step up or we step off. Simple. That's down to you. Got nothing to do with the woman. Down to you. In a relationship, you either step up in it or you step off and make a next man come in and do the thing. So next time we're here, it's a serious conversation. Tony?
No, thanks to God. Thanks to all the viewers, even those who don't agree with me. It's okay. We're fine. It's nice to have constructive dialogue. And I really enjoyed reading the comments while I was either speaking or listening to you guys. And some great comments were there. We couldn't cover them all, I'm afraid. But I hope that for some of you, we've sort of clarified our position. I hope for you men listening that we were able to sort of enunciate your feelings. We couldn't get everything out, unfortunately, and it wasn't really necessary. I knew I had a whole list of crimes that I wanted to call the women out on, but I didn't need to do that because once we got halfway through, we already started talking about being conciliatory. So that was all I was looking at. So there's no need for us to go over all of this again. We've said what we had to say. Now let's deal with some solutions. And that's all I'm interested in. How are we going to make the Black nation come together, move it forward, help the kids, help the grandkids that are coming up, and let's just do better and be better.
Absolutely. Thank you for your closing comments. Listen, we've come to the end of the show, but before we end, even though we've gone over time slightly, before we end, I want to take this opportunity to thank these two generals here for coming on this show. It doesn't take balls, it just takes men who are willing to talk. And I salute you both for coming on here and being open, being honest, and talking your truth. As I said before, this platform, I'm opening up this platform to men to talk. I've invited Tony and Mr C back here in 2 weeks' time. The title of the show was Why I Love Black Women, but might change it up a little bit. But we were going to have a panel of a few more men. But what I might do is I might move that on and just bring you two back and continue this conversation in the 2 weeks' time. Next week, we have Zora Johnson on, and we'll be talking about, we have a letter, actually we have 2 letters in. One letter is from a man and one is from a female who is saying that menopause is killing their relationship. And so we have Zora Johnson coming in to discuss the how to overcome certain things when women are going through menopause. And she will also be touching on andropause, which is the male version of menopause too. And then in the following week, we'll have these 2 generals back in to continue the conversation of how do we move forward from here. Listen, this has been an absolutely great show. I want to thank you, men, for coming in. I want to thank those of you who are on Facebook, those of you who are on YouTube. If you see me looking over here, it's because YouTube's over here and I've got different screens around me. But I just want to thank you for your comments. Do continue the conversation throughout the week. Continue to talk on the thread. Keep the conversation going. Stop the blaming. Men and women. It's now down to you to be responsible for what you say, how you say it, and how you are with the opposite member of sex. If you want a man, then you need to, and it's a problem for you, and you can't find a man, then there's something in you that needs to change. Yeah, so you be the change that you want to see, and then let's see what happens in your relationship moving forward. We all want great relationships. We all want to learn. We want relationships within our families, with men, with women. You know, we want to progress and move forward. So guys, again, I thank you for your openness, your honesty today. It means so much. You have blessed me today. I really see I've got love on. I feel the love today.
Bless up.
And I really think that we can move forward. We can change the world. We can. And I will be inviting you back on, because I do want to talk about parenting as well, because that's a separate subject. It needs one on its own. And I know you guys have got a lot to say and a lot to give. So we'll continue the relationship one, and then I'm going to invite you back to do a parenting one as well. So thank you. Much love to you guys.
Thank you, Yvonne. God bless.
You're very, very welcome. Always know that this platform is open to you to express yourself in any way you see fit. All right, I trust you guys. Guys, thank you so much for listening, being here. Do remember to join us back next week between the hours of 10 and midnight for the After Dark show. Continue to write the comments, continue to stay safe, love on yourself and others, and if you cannot be good, be careful. Ciao for now.
You ready? You got me running, got me running. Shake it, shake it, shake it, baby.